do another video talking about Alumilite and using it as alcohol ink. This time I'm going to talk about how it is drying on the projects, because this is originally designed to be a dye for resin. So we're going to see how it works to be used as artwork. So hang on. Howdy, howdy everyone. So I want to do a part 3 on this Alumilite and using it as an alcohol ink. And this is the product that I'm using here. And this is a product that Stone Coat Countertops is now carrying as a dye for the resin. And I've done some larger pieces. I messed with their fluorescent inks, but I want to mess with a little piece here so that I can talk about how it's drying. So I'm going to just throw some ink down and get started and use that as a way of explaining how well this stuff is drying and what we can do about it. Okay, so let's get this started here. Let's see. Definitely want to put on some gloves. Now this dye is heavily concentrated, so if you do decide to use it as an alcohol ink, keep that in mind. A tiny, tiny, tiny bit goes a long way. All right, and let's see if I can, I wonder if this one's already been spliced open. Okay, so this bottle here, you can see it's got a really thick point as far as the plastic. You do need to cut that in order to access the solution. All right, hopefully one of these is already open. Yeah, yes. And it comes out kind of like a thick molasses. Yeah, coming out of a small tube. So it does take a little bit to come out. And what I've done is I've transferred some of this to some little bottles. In other words, I filled up the bottle about 3/4 of the way with alcohol and then put about 4 to 5 drops, like let gravity take the drops kind of thing, put them in there. Is that a way of measuring? I don't know. So about 3 or 4 drops of the color into this for the fluorescent. The red didn't seem to take as much, like 1 or 2 drops did this. And then what I did is just put a couple drips onto a paper towel until it got to the density of color that I wanted. And at that point, then I would stop adding dye to it. So that's how I did that part. All right, and also on one of my pieces, I created a palette where I put some drops in here and then diluted them down so that I can play with the paint and stuff. So I'm also gonna apply some of this too, and also talk about how this dried out, because it's been in the palette for about a little over a week now, about a week and a half. So let's just get to adding some color to this for now. And I'm gonna do some of the fluorescence right next to a bright color or a saturated color. Let's see. We are gonna add some drops of alcohol to one of these colors that have been sitting here for a while to kind of reactivate it. Kind of like I would do normally with a color palette. And all I'm doing basically right now is just mixing in the alcohol with the dye that's been sitting here to reactivate it. And it's already coming across pretty rich in color. So I can either apply it with a brush, like so. And remember, I've already got alcohol that I poured down here. Or I could, now granted this got a little bit of blue on there, pick it up with a little pipette and apply some drips. So there's 2 different ways you can do that for getting it out of a palette. All right, I'm just gonna move this around with my blow dryer, get it to dry up. Okay. So let me bring you down. This is just a quickie thing just to show how these things are drying and stuff. So wasn't really worried about technique too much. Like I said, just throw on some of the fluorescent and some of the brown. All right, now this is dry. This whole thing here, you can hear it. There's no liquid right now. So, but it does come off. My gloves are fairly, see, they're clean on that except for this one. So I'm gonna take a clean finger and rub it across. And it will pick up some color. Let's see, there we go. So that is what is happening so far with my pieces. Now the other thing is happening, and don't let this discourage you just yet. Let's see, when I get an area here that's really, really rich on color and see if it'll do it. So the rich bits seem to definitely pull off color for about like a week long into with the painting just sitting there drying. And I had over there my little table, I had my painting sitting there for a good little over a week. And I took them and sealed them. And this, I'll bring them in here. Okay, so this one here, when I ran my hands across it, it would come up with a little bit of a powder or residue. Now this one didn't have too many of the really dark areas where it would definitely pull off wet solution, but it definitely pulled off a powder. So what I did is I sealed them up with 6 coats is the recommended of the UV archival spray. And that's usually what I do with alcohol inks, except for I don't usually go with 6 coats. Usually I go with a couple coats. But I thought in this case, I'm gonna do the full bit because it was, something was definitely coming up. And now my hands are nice and clean. I can rub my finger, one finger across, you can hear it. And I'm not picking up any color. So that worked out really, really well. And this is also a fluorescent. So I can get the sun to hit it just right. And the fluorescents worked out really, really nicely. So I've got 3, I think, fluorescent colors in here, and then I picked the deep red, something to give it some nice contrast. And I'm really happy with how those played out. And I was able to get it nice and rich, and also feather it out very nice and light. And I mean, got a lot of nice little detail bits. So I think that was a good test piece. All right, now to get my other piece here. All right, this one is the one that I've got in my palette, where I've got blues and browns and the ocean blue. And then I added in some of my other alcohol inks from another company. This is because, you know, we always mix brands, you know, especially as artist kind of types. You know, we'll get one paint from this company and one paint from that company. So I thought it was very appropriate. This is Pinata's Copper alcohol ink. So they played really, really nicely together. Now, this area in here, you see how it's super, super, super rich? That one did for the longest time. Whenever I pressed down on it gently with my finger and I looked at it, it would have a definite impression like it was still wet. So I gave it the same amount of time, a little over a week, and then I took a paper towel and very gently applied pressure, picked it up, applied pressure, picked it up, applied pressure, but nothing that would transfer and destroy the pieces. It was only in the very super, super dark areas. But the rest of the light stuff did fine. It would do the same kind of like a little bitty powdery thing, but it did fine. So it did dry. And then after the week, I hope I'm describing this okay, sorry. After the week, I went and sealed it again with this stuff, did the same six layers. Let's see, this one, and this one. No, all 4 fingers are nice and clean. And I'm not getting any color. So that's the pink from the other painting, sorry there. So that did work really, really well for sealing it. So whether you use this for countertop or paintings, I would recommend definitely doing some kind of a seal coat to protect your alcohol ink. Unless you're going in immediately with the resin. The only thing I don't know about with resin is because these dyes are used to color resin also, whether or not this little bit where it got really, really super dark, that would incorporate into your resin. Like if you were trying just to do a flood coat, would it reactivate and color that little bit of resin? I don't know. So doing the seal coat definitely protected it. So I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is my palette here, and you see that part, that brown right there. I just added alcohol to it so it's nice and juicy. Okay, so this is an area here that I took the brown and I lightened it up quite a bit with alcohol. This is the same one. I kind of got a little bit of the ocean blue and a little bit of the dark blue, but had a whole lot of alcohol, so it was kind of a nice light color. And I've got a clean finger here, and I'm just gonna press it and pick it up, and you see how it's got some blue on there? And then this is this one, and this color here is, in the middle is black, that's the blue, and that's ocean. So either one will work with this one. So I'm gonna get this finger that's nice and clean, and just tap it into that. And I don't even have to go far. I can feel it mush in. It almost feels like a gel. You see how juicy that is still? So be mindful of that when you're working with art and you do apply this color extensively. I think it would have a hard time drying. But if it's used lightened, like I did it with the alcohol inks, and this is how I normally apply them, they did just fine. If you let them go through the process of drying, and then possibly blot up some of the heavy spots, they'll do really, really well. So if you use it in that kind of an application, yeah, these things will work great. So, but if you want to use them heavy in paint, I mean, I just got quite a bit off my finger there. You could run into some problems. So, but like I said, a little bit goes a long way. I'm still getting this off of my finger. This is rub, 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 rub. See? So, just be mindful. Every type of paint has its limitations or its pluses. So, I will be doing a video soon, and I will be testing out some more alcohol ink and ways of protecting it, like the archival spray and then the stone coat UV resin. But this time I'm going to use alcohol inks that are supposed to be light fast. And I'm going to do the same kind of thing where I use a blue, a red, and a cyan. So, you know, I just said blue, red, and cyan. Sorry. Yellow, cyan, magenta. 3 different brands. And I've got, so I'm going to do Alumilite. And let's see, I've already got the brands here. Epoxy Candy. And also Malibu inks. That is Malibu, right? Yes, Malibu inks. So I'm going to do the same test where I do one column is 100% ink. The second column is the ink plus the archival spray. And then the third column is going to have the ink, the archival spray, and then the resin, UV resin on top of it. I'm also going to try a second experiment where I do the same ink that I did before, meaning I think I'm just going to pick Pinata inks. But this time I'm going to do Pinata ink and then 6 coats of the UV archival spray because I only did a couple coats before. And then Pinata ink, 6 coats, and then the UV resin. So I think that's where I possibly erred on my first experiment. So look for that. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, but definitely hit the bell. Get notified next time I put a video up. See you later.